Baba knows the way. For Joseph Baba Ifa, Baba knows the way. We follow the signs. He walks with the Orisha through sacred lines. He speaks with the ancients. He honors the drum. He carries the wisdom where we all come from.
Hey family, thank you for tuning in to Our Roots podcast with Joseph Baba Ifa. We're only the strongest roots see the light, brought to you by 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃 Candles and more. And if you haven't had the opportunity, hit that subscribe button. Today, Our Roots podcast is going to teach you how to take care of 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃. What is 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃? Oh, Phil, you caught me off guard there.
Well, I tried to time it when you said Ori, but it's a little late. I tried.
It's too slick for you.
I tried.
So
happy Sunday, man.
Happy Sunday, brother. Yeah. What do you think about 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃? What is 𝗃𝗏𝗿 to you?
Ori is the energy, right?
It's the energy. It's basically the extension of God that rests within our head, right?
Yeah, third eye, right?
Absolutely. That chakra, all those concepts across multiple spiritual cultures have been identified or have identified it. And you know, our how-to videos are doing very well, brother. I'm not sure if you noticed. I think our how to take care of the warriors is at like 60,000 views.
Oh, nice.
So that's pretty heavy. So, you know, the wife is always very hip to what, you know, our viewers want, and how-to is a big thing. So, you know, with Ifa and Orisha, it's a little difficult because we can't how-to everything because some of them are very secret, and, you know, we don't have time to pool everybody or filter everybody. So the things that we can put out, you know, for your value, we try to. And the beautiful thing about 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃 is 𝗃𝗏𝗃 really doesn't have any restrictions because guess what? Everyone's born with one above their shoulders. So we're going to go into the various ways that we could take care of 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃 so that you can incorporate it in your routine. A lot of people are always asking me because they're interested in the hand of Ifa, but, you know, it might take some preparation, whether it's scheduling, economics, etc., socially. And they're like, Baba, what can I do in the meantime? And I always say it's never too late to build a great relationship with your destiny, right? So before we delve into the specific steps that we can incorporate with 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃, we're going to talk about why 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃 needs to be attended to, why it's in the position it's in, without reiterating too much from our podcast with 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃, which I recommend for everybody because it did very well. It's a very popular topic, right? So we always have to go back to the 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃 when it comes to this, because in the 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃, it speaks of when 𝗃𝗏𝗿 descended from heaven to earth. And when it descended, it was kind of just a head that was rolling around, right? So it was going through a lot of obstacles, hardships. It was trying to find its way, per se. And it was having some real difficulties. So it actually ended up in 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃's home, where divination was performed for 𝗃𝗏𝗃 with the 𝗃𝗏𝗿 Baba Ifa, which is the 𝗃𝗏 of 𝗃𝗏𝗃 Atetenirang, which speaks of the internal destiny, right? And when this was done and a bowl was performed and the 𝗃𝗏𝗿 was ceremonially offered to 𝗃𝗏𝗃, it helped it fulfill its destiny and occupy its supreme apex position on the body, above the shoulders. And when it did that, all of the other appendages and joints and body parts attached itself as well simultaneously, thus giving the anatomy and physiology that we have as human beings till this day. Then you look at another 𝗃𝗏𝗿, which is Baba 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃, which speaks of the, you know, link between 𝗃𝗏𝗃 and its owner. And, you know, various people went to 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃 and said, 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃, when we die, you love us so much, you're going to die with us. And 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃 said, no, I'm not dying again. I'm already Orisha. And they said, who will die with us? Who will die with its child? And all of the other Orishas were asked and said no. And 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃 responded, the only deity that dies with the person is 𝗃. That light extinguishes, right? That's why 𝗃 is the first one we honor, because it's the one that is constantly trying to ensure our tenure here on earth. So there's that one as well. And then you have 𝗃𝗏s like 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗏, which is ironically a combination of 𝗃𝗏, which comes from Baba Ifa, and 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃 or Ogunda, thus making 𝗃𝗏𝗿𝗃 Ogunda, or an 𝗃𝗏 Ori was found in Ogunda, right? So in this Odu, it speaks of the constructor of heads. His name was 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗍, or is 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗍. And you see a conjunction here between two Odus where one leads into the other. The first one is 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗍, and then the second one is 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗍, which is going to be coming up soon on our Omoluo series, being that we're going through the Obbes. So in the beginning, when we're actually going through conception and all these different things, our body is constructed from the toes to the neck with clay and iron by the Orishas Oduduwa and Ogun, right? Once that's fulfilled and completed, we are thrust into the house of this gentleman known as Ayala, which is a path of Obatala. And all he does all day is construct heads or destinies out of clay. So when you are a headless body, you are thrust into this warehouse of destiny to pick your head. But the reason you do it blind is so you can't cheat and pick the best one, full of love, money, and health. Once you put your destiny on based on how it feels, right? In the Odu of 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗍, it says it's always best to pick one not due to its size, but better for its accommodation. So he picked out a head that he liked and he put it on, and he was thrust in front of Olodumare and all the Orishas and Egun and all the ancestors and things like that for his moment of judgment, at least the first one before we end up coming back. And this is where 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗍 takes over, where you kneel in front of the Creator. So at that moment, Olodumare looks at the person and says, hey, what do you want to be? And let's say, at least in my case, I was like, I want to be a Babalao. He was like, well, good for you. He says yes to whatever we ask for because he is merciful and good. And, then he says, well, what do you offer as tribute? And at that moment, whatever it was that you offered, is taken into account. But based on your destiny, you may have more debts. So Olodumare is like, that's great, but you also need to give a ram to Shango. You have to do this, you have to go through this hardship, and then you'll be able to fulfill your destiny, right? So Olodumare looks at Orunmila, who is Ibikeji Olodumare Eleri Ping, right? Which is he who sits next to Olodumare and is the witness to destiny, right? Or birth. And he says, what Odu are we going to give him? Which one did he pick? And, in my case, they're like, oh, Irete Suga. It was like, okay, which Orisha comes defending or alleviating his destiny, being that he's being initiated into 𝗃𝗃 tradition? Oshun was like, here, and then all of the muertos and eguns that want to seek elevation, helping this poor individual you see in front of you, they all say I, and everything's written down. And Olodumare looks at us and says, all right, goodbye, see you soon. And at that moment, we are born. And the reason we can't remember anything is because our mother's amniotic fluid is known as 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗍, or the water of forgetfulness that literally erases our memory, right? We're crying because we just got spanked and kicked out of paradise. And at 9 days old, ideally for boys, or 7 for girls, they give you the hand of Ifa or Isefa, or perform, 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 or 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲 Loruko, whatever you want to call it. It's basically the ceremony where your feet touch the ground and they give you a name and destiny to be able to work with Ifa. And
how long is that typically?
Huh?
How long is that typically? How long does that take?
Well, here's the thing. For girls, they do it at 7 days. For boys, they do it at 9 days, ideally, if you're lucky enough to be born into an Ifa family. I waited a little bit with my kids, being that the factory is shut down. I waited a little bit because the way we do the ceremony, it's a little more intense. There's a lot more components that go into it. A lot of blood, a lot of powder, a lot of allergens and things like that. And I didn't want to subject a baby, at least under the age of 6 months, to that. I thought that was a little bit too much. But, over there, they do it pretty immediately. Immune systems are different. It's a little more, they're a little more prepared from an immune standpoint, I think, just because of the elements and things they're interacting with. But some people do it regardless. I mean, nothing's ever happened. That was just my judgment call as a father. But, you can do it as early as 7 or 9 days based on gender. Now, as far as how long the ceremony takes for the Ishefa or the Hand of Ifa Mano Orula, I've seen traditional ones be done in 1 day or 4 days. The Hand of Ifa 𝗃𝗃 tradition is pretty standardized as a 3-day process. In emergencies, it can be expedited or accelerated, but I don't recommend unless it's an absolute emergency. So that's usually time frames. And the reason they wait that long is because they say that Ori takes a couple days to wake up based on gender. So the number 7 for women develop quicker than us, right? So they kind of awaken before us, you know, and the number 7 is very indicative like of the Odu Odi, where it speaks of creation and maternity and all those different things and the superiority of the female form. And then, you know, the number 9 for boys is indicative because it's the number of Egun, right? A cult that's, you know, has a lot of masculine overtones. And how we take a little longer to kind of get with it, you know? So thank God for women.
Yeah, of course.
You know, so even spiritually, it's the same thing. Their Odi wakes up much quicker than ours and is much more alert than ours, you know. And you can see it in the development of children. You know, I've been lucky enough... God's given me 5. I've seen 2 be born, and you know their development is completely different. You know, like where Lola, you know, would be like, "Hi, how are you?" Like she'll have a full conversation with you. You know, Bobby's much more testosterone ridden. Like he wants to show you things rather than talk about them. You know what I'm saying? So that's really indicative. And you see it spiritually, and you see it in real life when you see your kids and you facilitate their growth. So. Now that all the preamble's done, Baba, what are the various ways I can take care of my Ori, right? So the 𝗿𝗶𝗍𝗲 speaks of Ori having a direct connection to Olorum, right? Olorum means Olo Orum, owner of the sky, making reference to the sun. So Ori and the sun are connected. And if you look at the human condition and how we are really predisposed towards waking up early, getting the day started, we're supposed to be on the sun's schedule, whether the 𝗃𝗶𝗍𝗲 October says it, or 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗍, Eori once again, or 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲. So ideally, this is when we're taking care of Ori, right? So when the sun rises, or whenever we wake up and the sun hits our eyes, that's really, you know, when our day starts, the first thing we're supposed to do before we utter a word to anybody is kneel and face the east where the sun presumably rose, right, as it has, and we begin to hold our head. I'm trying not to mess up the hair. You know, you hold the head and you kind of go back and forth, right? Or, you know, you could do a straight back fashion. And as you're doing that, your first words are supposed to be that of invocation and appreciation. The first thing I like to start my day off with, because at this point it's kind of open, I always start with a moment of gratitude. Olodumare, my Ori, however you want to, I think Ori is probably the best way. You know, I want to say thank you for allowing me to wake up. Thank you for allowing me to have the strength to get out of bed. Thank you for allowing me to spend another day with my family, to have a purpose, you know, to be able to see, to be able to walk, to be able to breathe, to be able to feel, you know, all the things that we take for granted, you know. I will admit I'm not a staunch, you know, practitioner of this. I think at the beginning of my career, I was much more intense with my Ori invocations in the beginning. But, you know, when you have kids that wake up at 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning, you know, it's a little sporadic. It takes you off your routine a little bit. I'm getting back more into it.
Man, who are you telling?
You know what I'm saying? Shout out to all the parents out there who are really waking up. But I notice I tend to have more of my moments of gratitude now after the gym and things like that, because I think it's the first moment, you know, after a rushed and helter-skelter morning where, you know, I just completely destroyed my nervous system and taxed it with physical activity. You know, I usually take a walk and things like that, and I'm able to have that moment, you know. But ideally, it should happen if you have the time, like I'm saying. You wake up, you kneel, you give thanks for all the things you give thanks for, healthy children, you know, a spouse that loves you, all the things that you have that you should be thankful for, you know. And then after that, once we've gone through the introduction and preamble, now we can start asking for stuff, you know, and you start thinking about all of the things you're trying to accomplish that day, short-term goals as well as long-term goals, so you don't forget about anything, you know. So I hope I have a great day at work today. I have a project, I have a speech, I have a ceremony, whatever your lifestyle is. That way, you know, Ori knows what to focus on. And for some people not in the faith or maybe even in it, they're like, wow, this is really trivial. Is it really this simple? You'd be surprised, because most of the time we don't even do things like this, you know. With the way the lifestyle is led in the U.S., especially modernly, we really don't have time for much. You know, it's a real miracle that we don't stop breathing, because from the moment, you know, even me, from the moment I wake up, it's to the races, you know, young kids, getting kids ready for school, getting ready for work, you know, looking at schedule, trying to be physically active, spend time with the partner, you know, priority. All of these different things, you know, you begin to realize, where does destiny get left? On the back burner. You know, how does God know what we want? And, you know, thoughts are one thing, but remember, this is the concept of the secret. We have to manifest things through the spoken word, which is the most powerful thing we have, right? Like the 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲 says. So this is very key, especially if you're in a space where you're building or trying to scale. You definitely want to, you know, get in this habit. And you see concepts like this across a bunch of different cultures. You know, shout out to all the Muslim brothers and sisters out there. You know, they hit the deck and they're on their mat or their rug, and they face the sun and they pray. They do it multiple times a day. And, you know, I know a bunch of great Muslim brothers that I'm in communication with. They get great results from their spirituality, you know. So, and you see this across Africa. You see this, you know, the concept of kneeling or genuflecting, like I did when I used to be a practicing Catholic and go to the church. You know, it's that moment of humility. I think one of the greatest, and I think we talked about this in the 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗲, I think the first thing that man and woman has to do is accept that they are, you know, we have a higher power. You know, I think anyone who doesn't accept that, and I respect everybody's beliefs, because that could be a daunting task for somebody who's been betrayed or gone through trauma, you know, something above. That could be traumatic, feeling like you're out of control. But I do think it is very key for every human being to come to that conclusion at some point, because without a higher power, who are you accountable to? Yeah. You know, from the moment we're born, we have a conscience. We have a thought process, you know. These are things we still can't technically explain. Why do we have that voice in our head? You know, not the paranoid one, but, you know, the one that's constructive and the one that helps us understand ourselves and filter through things and thoughts. What is that? That is Eori. That is God. So from the very beginning, it is being forced in our face that we are not in control. You're in control of your actions. You're in control of your efforts. You're in control of that which you're able to control. But all the other things, which are quite numerous, we are not. So that's why there has to be that relationship and acceptance, because without a higher power, who are we accountable to? Without a higher power, how do we persist upon life? You know, where is the hope? Where is the motivation? All of these different things. Now, for people in other spiritualities who don't talk to God, you know, that's really daunting. But, you know, for the practitioner of Ifa and Orisha, we have the advantage that we can talk to God whenever we want. Hey, Baba, I want a reading. Or for the brother 𝗃𝗏𝗏, pull king. Or for the brother 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗏𝗏 or 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏𝗏, throw the shell. Whatever you need, we have those confirmations. So it's okay to let go and let God. You know, it's okay to have faith. It's okay to be vulnerable in these things between you and a higher power, because we're still in communication with him or her, you know, depending on the movie Dogma. You know, it's one of those things where it's really comforting, you know, because when you're somebody that's a head of household, when you're somebody that's a parent, and all of the stresses and preoccupations that we go through with on a daily basis, just knowing that somebody has your back through the confirmation of divination and revelation of destiny and all these different things, we have a huge advantage. And to be frank with you, I don't know, and I think the channel does a pretty good job of it, but maybe we haven't gotten that point across. Are we taking enough advantage of those privileges that we have spiritually? You know, understanding the magnitude of the energies that we're in communication and contact with, you know, even just something like Eori, which is innately ours from the moment we are born.
Do you think we as a people would get a little complacent with that though? Like, or we just don't know?
Are you talking about the people who have accepted Ifa or not accepted Ifa?
Both, really. I mean, because if you haven't accepted Ifa, you just don't know. You know what I mean? But yeah. But you hear about spirituality all the time. But let's say you are in Ifa, and you know about Eori. You know, do you think that since they know it's always around, do you think they just kind of get complacent sometimes?
Yeah, it can happen. You know, I've never lost sight of the fact that I'm in touch with the higher power. You know, through king divination, through process, through ceremony, I never lose sight of that. you know, and for some people, especially those who might have been born into the faith or who were very blessed to get grandfathered in by their parents or have those advantages to get involved and initiated without, you know, all the sacrifice and effort that some of us have been through, it is easy to be like, yeah, you know, and to a certain point, you know, like someone such as myself who, you know, I throw the chain every day for somebody, you know, I never lose sight of the fact of, yo, this is God. You know, and I try to hold myself accountable, because if I don't remember that that's God on the mat, then who's God? Me? Is it the person? Is it somebody else? You know, we always have to remember the source. So I don't allow Ifa to become folkloric for me. Ifa is not antiquated to me. Ifa is not like, you know, Greek mythology or the Parthenon or you know, any of those things. Like, Ifa is real and alive till this very moment. It's not what's in the pyramids. It's here, you know, and it has survived and it has maintained. And, you know, that acknowledgement, I think, will give it a level of respect and solidarity that'll keep somebody from becoming too complacent with it, you know. And I think complacency is a dangerous thing, because if we lose certain aspects of the formality, then where do we get our results from? I remember when I was going through my training with my godfather, man, you know, God bless him, man, nothing but gratitude. He taught me everything. And I noticed that what he was teaching me, because, you know, as a 𝗲𝗏, at some point you hit the street, you start meeting other brothers, seeing other processes. And, you know, for all intents and purposes, I came from a good Ifa home. You know, like when you're blessed enough to have both parents and, you know, a stable lifestyle and live in a certain tax bracketed area, that's an advantage. I had those advantages within Ifa with my godfather, you know, him just being the gentleman he was, and the ethics and the morals and the preparation and, you know, just all of these things that I got with him. When I hit the street with Ifa, I'm like, oh, not everybody's like us. Not everybody practices like us. Not everybody has those constructs like us. So I would go back to him. I'd be like, yo, Padrino, nothing for nothing, we're doing a whole lot more than everybody else. Do we really need to do this? And he said, absolutely. He said, absolutely, because this is the way it was given to us. This is the way it was taught. This is what has given us results. You know, why change it now? I said, well, you know, I mean, and, you know, as a young man, you know, you look for that confirmation from your elders. He's like, I have to teach you this strictly up front, because eventually you're going to loosen up a little bit, as everybody should. You know, when I teach you how to drive a car, I have to teach you by the book, because if I teach you, you know, lean back, you know, sipping on gin and juice and the lowrider, you know, by the time you're 10 years in, you're going to have a major accident, you know? Yeah. But I have to teach you by the book up front. That way, when you do relax, you're still within parameters of survival, you know? And I understood him completely, because, you know, like when guys train over here or we interact with other houses and things like that, like they'll come to me and they'll be like, yo, Baba, is this acceptable? I'm like, yeah. And they'll be like, but what about this? I'm like, that's good too. They'll be like, well, what about this? I'll be like, sure. And they'll be like, do you say no to anything? I said, of course. But, you know, there's a big difference between wrong and interpretive. You know, just because the candle's red instead of white doesn't mean it affects the ceremony in any different way. But if you change the gender of the ram, you know, for a certain Orisha, okay, that's taboo. Oh. But it taught me, you know, parameters. And I think that's served me well, and it can serve anybody well in these things where there's really no regulatory body other than the Orishas. I mean, we don't guide ourselves by Yoruba land. You know, the New World, we kind of go by lineage and house to a certain degree. And I'm very excited about the Ifa written tradition, because regardless if we have lineage, you know, everything is corroborated or supported by literature. Ifa started as an oral tradition and has ultimately become a written one. But we'll get into that. But, you know, from an Ori standpoint, very key to start off this way. And it seems simple, but once you start building this momentum and you start creating this habit, life will start changing for you. Like I spoke to a brother recently, and he's like, Joseph, what is the secret? And I said, if there is one, it's showing up and working harder than anybody you know. You know, and you get to a point in life within Ifa and within your habits that I liken it to moving with the wind, you know, kind of like Pocahontas with the leaves. And, you know, I can't remember the last time I woke up and showed up that something great didn't happen. It's very few and far between, you know. If you live righteously and you have good routines and you prepare yourself and you maintain yourself in a perpetual state of progress, all you have to do is show up and work hard. you know, and everything else will take care of itself. It's like you were saying, Phil, sometimes people work hard and things don't go well. Yeah. Sometimes, you know, people are in the right place, wrong time, any of these things. But once you get the other things sewed up, all you have to do is show up. You know, it's like you with podcasting, you know, hey, you put in the work, you know, people know who you are. You just got to show up. You show up, you record, somebody comes in, hey, I want to become a client. You're like, man, that's awesome. Repeat, you know? Yeah. So that's what these kind of habits with Ori will create for the person. So if you can recognize that you're somebody like, yo, I'm not having consistent luck or progress, I'm feeling depleted on my ashe, I'm feeling out of touch with myself, almost disassociated spiritually, this is the habit for you, for sure. And this is just one aspect of the other things that we're going to get into. But, you know, after that, yeah, we've invoked Ori. We've asked for, you know, we've had our moment of gratitude. We've asked for all that we think we need and want. And at that point, you know, we're off to the day, you know, spend some time with the spouse, you know, before the kids bombard the room and, you know, get ready for your day. Now, people ask me all the time, Baba, what about offerings, right? What can I actually put on my head? And that can be very streamlined too. So you have a process known as ibori, right? Ibori, which means to offer sacrifice to Ori or make offerings to Ori. And that's within a specific formal context. Ideally, another professional is doing it for you, Babalawo or Orisha, depending on your licensure. And anything can be offered to Ori, even regardless of guardian Orisha. And I've gotten into this conversation. But Ori is independent of your Orisha, right? So the whole religion is Ori, right? It's all about protecting and realigning Ori. Everything that comes out in a reading is what Ori is telling you it needs to be able to realign. So if it comes out that you have to give a ram to 𝗀𝗲𝗍, Ori is instructing 𝗀𝗲 that to be able to defend it, 𝗀𝗲 needs to have the strength of a ram to be able to realign Ori. That's why they're known as Orishas, selected heads or defenders of Ori. They're the ones who incorporate things to realign us with our destiny so that we get what we're predestined for at a quicker rate to enjoy it while we're here. So anything can be offered to Ori. I've heard some people say, well, what about the children of 𝗿𝗲𝗍? Can we do a head rogation with red palm oil? Yes. What about the children of 𝗿𝗏? Can we offer a ram to our head? Yes. Because Ori is completely independent of anything that an Orisha can stipulate upon it. Remember that Ori is the one who makes the rules, not the Orisha. Now, mind you, and this even is more explicative or more applicable for the 𝘃𝗶𝗱 practitioners. Mind you, you guys, you know, you initiate into multiple Orishas. You're not just crowned 𝗿𝗏𝗍, you might be crowned 𝗿𝗏𝗍, 𝗿𝗏, and 𝑒gungun, right? Each of them have their own separate taboos, you know? Now, if you have somebody that comes from an innately 𝗿𝗏𝗍 lineage, like ancestrally all the way back or whatnot, even then, it doesn't mean that you can't utilize an ingredient to appease Ori, because the condition of Olorisha is completely independent of Ori because Ori was present beforehand. So, and mind you, there are odus that speak of when each Orisha consumed everything. There's a pataki that speaks of when 𝗿𝗏 consumed ram. There's a pataki where 𝗿𝗏𝗍 consumed red palm oil. And all these different things. So the Orisha cannot place taboos on Ori. It's actually quite the opposite, you know. So anything can be offered to Ori based on the person's odu. Now that's the key part there. So for example, there's this huge debate about the children of Oshun, right? Can the children of Oshun, can their heads come in contact with the snail in any way, shape, fashion, or form? And the answer is yes, right? So if you look at odus like Otrupo Meyi, as well as Irete and Telu, it speaks of when head rogations and offerings of Igbing were made to Ochun's head or the snail, and, you know, it had a very negative effect. But there's a lot of extenuating factors there. You know, first off, witchcraft was placed in the head rogation, right? That was their specific odu. Now, if you're an initiate of Oshun, frankly, and your odu of initiation is Irete and Telu or Olobo Meji, I don't recommend that, you know. But if you look at somebody like in my sign, you know, of Esekan Ola, it speaks of, you know, a verse about the benefits of the snail. And for anybody that's worked with me, I am nothing short of a snail. I'm very slow and methodical. I'm all about precision and perfection. So, you know, everything is based on odu, right? Even more than Orisha, because ultimately, Odu is the language of Ori. Odu is what Ori has told us to alleviate it in times of need, right? It's there to give us those solutions based on our specific spirituality or spiritual condition based on our destiny that we picked, right? That's why if you look at Odus like Obeyono, everybody's Ori is composed of different things. Everybody has different taboos or 𝗃𝗲𝗍. Like in the Odu Botura Irete, it speaks of 𝗃𝗲𝗍 or the taboo, where Orunmila said some things are good for you, but not good for him. So everything has to be based on the Odu. So from an Ibori standpoint, that's done usually by a professional. Now you have some initiated brothers and sisters who will do, you know, a quick mixture and things like that to help alleviate their head. That's semi-Ibori. But a formal one is where Obi is tossed and things like that. Ceremonial prayer, incantation, process, marking. They definitely look different from tradition to tradition, where the 𝘃𝗂𝗃𝗃 one is a little more streamlined as far as points versus the 𝘃𝗶𝗍𝗃 one, which focuses more on joints rather than chakras, right? To put it a type of way. Because the Afro-Cuban one is based on Odus like Obeyono, right? Speaking of Ori, and Odus like Oturawani, when Ori was too spiritually heavy for the body and it needs to be reinforced based on the joints. Where the 𝘃𝗂𝗃𝗃 Ibori is more focused on Ori and its three manifestations in the body, whether it's Ori, Inu, or Imponring or Impori, right? Which is the head, belly button, and left big toe. For those who have seen and gone through, being that you're there, you know, and in the 𝘃𝗂𝗃𝗃, it's not as secret per se. So we've gone over that. So what are some basic things we can offer to Ori to kind of alleviate it, right? So with Ori, you're going to notice a lot of links to the Orisha 𝗃𝗏𝗍𝗏, obviously, being that he was the guy that created it and constructed it. So shea butter is huge. Now, this all depends on hair. You know, how much hair do you have? But it doesn't have to be a lot neither. And these are pretty generic things. Shea butter is great. You can rub a little bit between your hands, rub some on your head to the back, and it'll usually not be so much where it interrupts any hair products, right? Another thing, efung, or the famous 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, the chalk. Ultimately, efung means chalk, so it doesn't necessarily have to be the specific efung rock that, you know, we get from Africa. So the one that you could find at your local botanica, maybe Candles and More, works as well. Just a little sprinkle of it, things like that. Usually, and this isn't always mandatory, but usually when people offer to their Ori, they usually wear a head covering, right? To not have it exposed. Because when we offer to Ori, we are invoking it and opening it. We're opening that chakra and exposing it. So it's kind of like if we have an incision on our head, we'd cover it with gauze because it could, you know, get infected. Ori is the same concept. So usually if you're going to make offerings to your Ori in a more acute fashion that day, you'd wear some type of head covering, usually white, but it doesn't always have to be. Like if you look at the Odu of 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, it says the person should wear a red hat. Or if you look at 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, it says wear a black one. Black isn't always taboo either when it comes to Ori. So, you know, everything once again is based on the Odu because your Ori needs something specific and that information is in your Odu. So another thing I'll say here is the best way to take care of Ori, or the first step towards taking care of Ori, is receiving your mano de Orula or hand of Ifa, because at that point we know your spiritual DNA and what Ori wants to have the best life possible and destiny possible. And for the brothers that want to become babalawos, the best step you could take towards your Ori is doing Ifa, because your true Odu of Ifa, or your true Odu of Ori is your Odu of Ifa. You know, and in that case, for those gentlemen such as myself, that's when we do Ifa, or Itefa, or Itelodu, etc. So shea butter, super key. Efung, or 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃, super key. So the shea butter is more for like tranquility, relaxation, and things like that. The 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 is also for calm, but it has more of a cleansing aspect of maintaining purity and deflecting negative energies. The ingredients of 𝗃𝗏𝗃 are going to have a lot to do with Ori. So those are the first two, right? Another thing is coconut water, right? So when we look at the Odu of 𝘃𝗶𝗍𝗃 or 𝗃𝗏𝗃, it says that the coconut represents the hemispheres of the brain. So usually what will happen is, and you don't have to break them over your head. You have to be very careful here. I don't know if I'm that dexterous to where I could hold a coconut and bash it over my head and then let the water fall without giving myself a concussion.
I mean, you gotta have a superpower to
what's the name of the character that 50 Cent is playing in Street Fighter?
Balrog.
You gotta have Balrog hands for that.
Yeah. Or just be Hawaiian.
Yeah, that too. Have you seen the video of the gorilla breaking coconuts with his bare hands?
No, but I'm gonna find it.
Dog, my dad told me about it. I don't know if it's real or not, but he said that there was just a video, and the gorilla was so bored. His ori must have been understimulated. The gorilla was so bored that he was just taking coconuts. I don't know if he was bashing them against his head and opening them, or just like, but he opened like 50 coconuts. Just like, imagine, like, I don't know. But if we find that video, that's definitely worth it. He needed a head rogation for sure. But yeah, so there's that, right? So the coconut water, it helps realign our head. It helps realign our OD, so that there's balance there from a hemispherical standpoint within our spiritual brain. And it represents the head, and even in 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏, even though agbong, right, or the coconut is not used for divination, it is used as an offering for ori, right? So whether it's the grated one that we can kind of mush up with other ingredients and put on our head to refresh it, or the actual pieces, that's offered to the ori icon, etc. One thing I do make mention of, because it is, a point of interest and topic, is with the coconut, if you are going to offer the grated coconut fruit or the meat, try to remove the brown part, because the 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗏 says that that's the curse that the coconut received from Olodumare or 𝗿𝗶𝗸𝗏 or 𝗵𝗷𝗶𝗏, depending on the story. So they say that's the part you want to remove, and then some people say, well, that's the wisdom part, the part that was, pained, so leave it. So I've never noticed any change in results as far as effectiveness, but that's for you to decide. Just know if you do leave the brown, nothing's going to happen from a negative standpoint. So the water is very good for refreshing, pouring it over your head. You can even incorporate it in like a bath. We have the concept of not the soaking bath, but the 𝗃𝗶𝗱𝗏 bath, where we pour it over ourselves, to align ori, or to just, strip away any negativity, things like that. And then some people will take some of the grated coconut, leave it on their head throughout the day. And mind you guys, you have to be very careful when it comes to ori. And you're going to notice this video is somewhat semi-entry level, because ori is the most complex topic in the whole spirituality of Ifa. It's the whole religion, right? If ori is not good, nothing's good. If our head's not good, nothing's good, like 𝗃𝗶𝗱 says. So there is a concept that when we have offerings that have more volume, right? Specifically the ibori process, but if you're going to the point of actually creating like a mixture and putting it on your head, you have to be careful, because when we're aligning ori, another energy that's being realigned with us as well simultaneously is 𝗃𝗶𝗍, right? So they say that when we do a certain level of ori offering, especially one that incorporates like the coconut or the obi being mashed up and placed on our head and left on there for a prolonged period of time, 𝗃𝗶𝗍 is coming to look for us, right? So if you're in the house, that's fine. I mean, nothing's going to happen there, ideally. But definitely shouldn't be leaving the house with a concoction like that, because if you meet up with your 𝗃𝗶𝗍, they take you back to where they're from, which is heaven. So no bueno. So keep it simple and things like that, and try to maintain your ori offerings on your head within your home before leaving the house, or maybe even before taking a shower and things like that, so that when you do, you remove it and you're able to go about your day. And that's more referent to like the bigger things, like if you're offering like grated coconut, incorporating a bunch of different ingredients in there. But just like the little shea butter or 𝗃𝗃𝗍𝗏, it's really not an issue. Another thing, when we make an offering to ori, and this is more of an 𝘃𝗶𝗍 concept, but I guess, in 𝘃𝗶𝗍𝗏 it wouldn't really apply, because we actually sleep with it. But in 𝘃𝗶𝗍, there's a concept where, after you made offerings to your head, you want to try not to bow your head or put it in an inferior position to 𝗃𝗶𝗍𝗏, or where Eshù lives, for a period of about half an hour, right? To allow ori to kind of, gain strength and orientation and alignment with Olorun, and all those different things. And then after that, you can kind of go on with your day, take your shower, whatever your habits are, and, move on. Especially if it's like, once again, the grated coconut mixture and a bunch of different things. Another thing you could wash your head with is oti, right? Or any type of liquor, right? Usually with oti, it's more leaned towards the lighter ones, whether it be gin.
The clear ones.
Yeah, the clearer ones. Gin. Like, it doesn't have to be Bombay Sapphire unless you're feeling,
Like vodka.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, vodka will work. Vodka really never took flame with any 𝗲 because it really hasn't been over there. At least within antiquity. The reason gin really made it into 𝗲 was because of the British influence in Nigeria. So, and it's also seen as a liquor that's not as intense, as like a rum or like aguardiente, which is very intense. But I guess our ODs are a little intense over here. So, but you can wash your head with OD as well. You can mix it with the coconut water, or you can kind of just rub some on your head as well. Man, even fresh water. To be frank with you, the greatest offering we do to OD on a daily basis, or whatever your habits are, is a bath. It really is. Just the refreshing of OD and the scalp and overall health and things like that, super key. Another thing you could wash your head with if it doesn't dry out your scalp and things like that too much, or there's also infused products. I wish we could get a sponsorship from them, but I understand if we don't. Shea Moisture, right? They have some great black soap or infused things, or if you can get just raw black soap and utilize it. It's great for OD as well. Washing your head with black soap. It's as natural as it gets. Any of the natural soaps as well with spiritual influence, whether it be goat's milk, any type of milk. Infused things, like some people will wash OD with milk as well, goat's milk and things like that. But if you don't want your head just full of milk, any of those soaps or products are really great as well. Castile soap have all proven to be very effective spiritually within the literature of Ifa for OD realignment and appeasement, right? Apart from that, any of the different obis that exist, whether it's 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲, the pink one, you can grate it as well, like the coconut, or you can even mix them. Orobo as well, which is the bitter cola, which leans more towards 𝗃𝗺 and is very ideal for the children of 𝗃𝗺, offering it to OD and things like that. But there's so many ingredients. There's so many things you could offer. It usually leans towards the white spectrum of things just because of the influence of Obatala. But for example, if I'm a son of Oshun, maybe I might put a little honey on my head. If I'm a child of Yemaya, maybe a little shea butter. Not shea butter, forgive me. Even though that's not taboo, it's not taboo for anyone. The molasses or melao, right? The 𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃.
Okay.
Any of the ingredients that are associated with the Orisha that you're initiated to, or if you're initiated into multiple ones, the generic things for OD based on your Odu or in general. But another guy to really take into account here, because everybody's like OD. A really important thing to remember here is Ori is the front part of your head, but then there's this guy named 𝗃𝗀𝗄 in the back, which is where 𝗪𝗄 resides. And for anybody that's ever feeling depressive symptoms, aggressive, kind of not the norm, it's always ideal to put a little bit of red palm oil on the back of the neck or head. That's why I say you cannot be in taboo offering red palm oil to one's Ori, regardless of Orisha, because regardless of Orisha, all of us have 𝗃𝗀𝗄, like identified in the 𝗃𝗶𝗍𝗶 and 𝗃𝗏𝗍, and you put red palm oil there. That's why even when we perform animal sacrifice, right? One of the ways that, I learned very quickly how to align Ori is you dab the right middle finger with blood from the animal's neck, and you start it from here and go all the way back, right? It's a way to align Ori with 𝗃𝗀𝗄. But when you get to the part of the red palm oil, if it is consistent with the Orisha that's being fed, you put red palm oil on the back of the head as a way to appease 𝗪𝗄 so he doesn't become vicious with the blood he's just tasted. But in the case, if you're feeding Obatala, I would put shea butter or something like that to mitigate. But 𝗃𝗀𝗄 is also very important. So if you're noticing that you're doing your OD routine and you're doing your OD offerings and you're not getting the results that you're looking for, it's very key to also attend to 𝗃𝗀𝗄 every now and again. Little red palm oil on the back of the head, and you're good. So those are the little offerings and things that you can give generically to OD. And guys, I encourage questions on this video because there's going to be a lot, I'm sure, of the different things that we can offer and whatnot. Please feel free. And it's all based on Odu. So other than the affirmations, right, and the invocation in the morning, or the actual things we can offer, we spoke about how to protect Ori so it's as efficient as possible. We spoke about 𝗃𝗀𝗄𝗃, all the different elements that go into it. Another big thing is rest. Attending to Ori, another big thing is rest, making sure we're getting adequate rest so that Ori can function, because without rest, nothing can manifest, I didn't mean to rhyme there. But it's very key, because you could ask Ori till you're blue in the face. You can make a bunch of offerings to Ori physically, but at the end of the day, if you're not rested, nothing's going to work. That's why in Cuba, being that 𝗶𝗸𝗍𝗲 is, 𝗶𝗸𝗍𝗲, or the king of dreams, it's why most of the time in our head rogations, we sleep with them, right, on our head. So that's where that concept comes from. There's actually a song, 𝗶𝗸𝗍𝗲, forgot which way it goes, but it's 𝗶𝗸𝗍𝗲, 𝗶𝗸𝗍𝗲, which means 𝗶𝗸𝗍, or the king of dreams, is in the house of dreams. So when we delve into our subconscious mind and the offering is still present, it's working for us even while we're sleeping. So we're getting all those residual blessings, right? So makes reference once again to 𝗶𝗸𝗍's character and quality, the subconscious brain, the dream, the white cloth, all of these different things. The color white is really beneficial most of the time, but you have odus like 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲 and 𝗃𝗲𝗹𝗁 that says white is not a beneficial color. This is outside of the 𝗹𝗶𝗸𝗲 process, of course. What the 𝗹𝗍𝗲s do with their head is a completely different thing, and that's for the initiated. So when you get there, your elders will let you know. And questions, Phil? You're somebody that is
Can you lose Ori? Can it diminish?
Oh man, that's really great, brother. You can weaken Ori. You definitely can weaken Ori. For example, if we're going through an Ibori process or somebody's trying to strengthen their Ori, and this doesn't go for everybody. This is once again based on Odu. You want to meditate. Ultimately, the interaction with Ori is meditation. I say everything is in Ifa, but not everything is Ifa. Ifa focused on a certain aspect of its literature, and others focused on others. So when you look at meditation techniques, even though they're not necessarily listed in Ifa on how to do it, doesn't mean Ifa wasn't the route towards it. Like in the Odu of 𝗲𝗍𝗍, 𝗃𝗏𝗍 was a yogi. In my own Odu of 𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲, yoga manifested. So all of these things, the aligning of chakras, all those concepts come from us, but there are other cultures that have spent more time as far as delving into it, whether it's like a Reiki session, which is really great. We offer them at the store, or even at 𝗏. I just wanted to focus definitely on things that you guys could do independently, because, a 𝗏 ideally is once a year, a Reiki session might be once a year, but you guys have to deal with your destiny on a daily basis. But you definitely can harm Ori by allowing, intrusive thoughts or things to enter the brain, unmitigated. We want to maintain our mental hygiene here, and whatever that takes. For some people, that's consuming cannabis. For some people, it's not consuming cannabis. We definitely want to avoid harsh substances, anything above that on the gradient, because, if we're frying neurons and things like that, that's not helping the head. Ergo, it's not helping Ori, or the internal spiritual head. I'll be honest with you, man. Anything that radicates around the head is gonna bless Ori. I mean, I'd be lost if it wasn't for the occasional haircut and things like that. There's a spiritual aspect towards all the things that radicate around the head, or when a woman gets her hair done, wow, I feel invigorated. Aromatherapy, any of these things, all of these things strengthen Ori other than the conventional Ifa processes. There's so many other things that go into the mental health of the mind, or even the physical health of the head. So all of those things, kind of identifying your taboos spiritually or physically, and that could all lead to a great situation. Now, what are going to be the symptoms of success with Ori? You're going to start seeing your dreams unravel, unfold, and manifest right in front of you. Your goals are going to be accomplished. You're going to feel harmony, not only with yourself or those around us. Another aspect about attending Ori is everybody needs somebody to talk to sometimes. So if we're having some difficulties understanding something, whether it's with a babalawo or a professional therapeutically, all of those things are going to benefit Ori, right? Because it's the most complex thing. When you look at a brain, we really don't understand it. We try to interact with it. We've learned some things about it, but this is every day. We're finding out something new about the human condition mentally and physically. So I think all of those things will definitely help. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wanting to know, because it's like
But
reps.
it won't leave you. It won't leave you unless you die. 𝗀𝗲𝗍𝗍 says Ori never leaves until we leave. So its mission is to help us accomplish our mission. But you could definitely weaken it. Like there's certain and you can see those reflections just within, physical symptoms, If I do this and I feel this, yeah, you heard it, So constantly doing things to edify it, whether it's reading, Sudoku, or studying Ifa, even just the act of studying your Odu is going to strengthen Ori quite a bit because you're helping Ori remember all of the things it left behind before we were born. So just the act of studying and being aligned with Ifa and going through those processes, attending Isshu, attending 𝗀𝗲𝗍𝗲, like all of those things are going to beef up Ori because through attending the other Orishas, we're defending Ori and allowing us to delve and allocate more time to it. So,
can someone's Ori be bigger than someone else's?
Bigger, no. Aligned, yes. Okay. I think, I tell you, man, there's one thing that really grinds my gears, man. When, everybody speaks differently and communicates differently, but, I'm just at a point in my priesthood and my career where I try not to say things that can be misinterpreted per se, but, like, for example, I heard one person one time, at a distance saying, my Ori was too big for them to handle it. Well, no Ori was too big for 𝗀𝗲𝗍𝗲 to handle. So this whole concept of size and things like that, it's like when you ask me, is the 𝗃𝗏𝗏 the high priest of Ifa? Well, we're the priests of Ifa, just like, the brother Oriates or the priests of Orisha. I try to look things on a parallel pendulum because things like size and stature and status, they get misinterpreted very quickly. But I don't think anybody's Ori is bigger than anybody's. I think people's egos can be bigger than others' people's, but that doesn't mean their Ori's bigger. That means they're just, confused. But you do have Oris that are more aligned, and that takes time. That takes, getting things performed from your sign, habits, thought processes, working on ourselves cognitively. Like, to have an aligned head, that's the greatest thing because nothing will be able to stop it. When you're focused, when you're aligned, when you're surrounded by the right things and you're putting the right things in your body, I mean, at that point, you are unstoppable. I think it was a commercial. LeBron James said it, the greats master the body, the greatest master the mind. You know what I'm saying? So I think all of that holds true when it comes to this concept for sure.
Okay. All right. Well, guess what?
Oh, the Ori of my members.
There it is. It's time to show love to the people who show love to you, man.
Bless.
Yeah, that's right. In case you're wondering what that sound is, it's real easy. You can join our membership program. It's a little button right under this video. We got 3 separate tiers. Each tier is offering its own separate perks, whether it's extra shows, discounts on merch or classes, private shows just for you guys, or early podcast releases. It's all in there.
Nice.
So we're going to show some love to the supporters. This is our entry level
very nice
list here. So first on the list, we got Aisha R.
Thank you, Aisha.
We got Ramiro Garza.
Okay.
Did I roll my R as well?
Very nice.
All right, we got Ricardo Napoles.
Thank you. You're rolling the R's today, bro. You've been practicing.
We got Dead Worms.
Okay, thank you.
We got Bridges to Empowerment.
All right, what's up?
We got Trayvon Akeem.
Welcome.
We got Afro Galactic Universe.
Great name.
Yeah. We got shout out to everybody's names,
shout out to everybody's names, man. We see you're putting effort, and we're proud of y'all for real.
We got Just Joanne.
Awesome.
Right. We got Cesar Scissorhands.
Thank you.
Right.
Man, that's in the running.
Yeah, we got Aligning Soul.
Nice.
And rounding out, we got Kendra Calhoun.
Guys, thank you so much. You're the best part of our channel. Let somebody know about the membership program so they can benefit as well. The Light Within workshop is steadily approaching October 4th and 5th. Be sure to look into it. Bunch of great accessibility and discounts available for members as well as everybody coming from afar. We can't wait to see, meet, and spend time with all of you like you guys have been asking. For the 𝗃𝗏𝗏 website is up and running for all service and product needs. Also, we ship. Want to mention our sponsors as well, Luna Hall and Studio. where the workshops are actually going to be taking place. So very exciting there. A great place for events, anything you could think of. Be sure to get in contact with them. Ifa Orisha Event Center as well is up and running for anybody trying to do ceremony. It's a great space with a lot of privacy and quality.
Wait, got a video. Here we go.
Oh, there we go. Love the beat.
Yeah. So this is showing a video of the Luna Hall.
Nice.
And yeah, looks really nice.
Yeah, we're really excited.
Yeah, I gotta come see it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Phil, you know you're invited. Doors are open.
I know.
Yeah. And shout out to Twin Precision Mobile Detailing. Definitely get in contact with those guys if you want a fabulous looking vehicle. If you can't catch us on video here on YouTube, be sure to check us out on any of the major platforms like Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, etc. Be sure to subscribe, guys. A big thank you from all of us here at Our Roots Podcast. And until next time, see the light.
Baba Joseph showed the path today. Baba knows the way, we follow the signs. He walks with the Orisha through sacred lines. He speaks with the ancients, he honors the drum. He carries the wisdom where we all come from.